The world we're living in is very unpredictable. We could find ourselves in any sort of situation. And I want to be prepared for all of them. I started getting involved in the martial arts at a young age. As a kid, I could not sit still. I was always in motion. People find discipline in different ways. Most of my discipline did come from the sports at a young age. I'm the creator of SOCP's Special Operations Combative Program. I run a MMA jiu-jitsu gym, also a product designer. SOCP is the only program of record designed for special operation units. I enjoy training federal, state, military because their life is on the line. I get the gratification of working with the best in the world. I have to give them the tools, the tactics, the procedures. I want them to go home to their families.
Let's go.
My job now is to constantly evolve as an instructor, to be the best person that I can with the information and articulating the information to get them to do what I need them to do so they'll be safer doing their job. Because it is very serious. There's no take backs. There's no redo. There's no reset button. They said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be an inventor. I want to make stuff. I've developed dozens of products. If I designed something and I realized it was flawed, I wouldn't make do. I would trash the whole thing and I would stay up all night and fix it. I was made to be doing what I'm doing right now. At the end of the day, I'm fortunate that we are working with the best of the best. Making a difference in the world is very important. What I teach these units could save their lives. I don't take that lightly.
All right, folks, that was no other than Mr. Greg Thompson. But better than that, this is Greg Thompson. How are you, Greg?
Wonderful, sir. How are you doing?
Oh, awesome. Glad to have you aboard. And no other than also we have Mr. Anderson here. So let me get him up here for you. There he is. How are you, Mr. Anderson?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Honored to be here today.
Yeah, it's an honor. So I am thrilled to death to have both of you here, two of my favorite guys. But Greg, this is your day. So I want to thank you for being here. And above and beyond that, I want to thank you for what you do for our special forces. So
thank you. I'm honored to talk with you guys and your viewers and share, some of what I learned over the years. So the pleasure's all mine.
Well, thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate it. Now, you have a website. Let's jump over to this, which is your SOCP gear, and you've got a wide variety of different gear on here. You want to go into some of these products that you've got on here? And the fact that I'm getting ready to buy one of these right here, I'm going to order that as soon as we end the broadcast here. So,
yeah. What I've got, it's SOCPgear.com. I started this product site back in November. I've got a training site that's SOCP.info, and that's for law enforcement and military. I don't run, civilian courses. I may be doing some self-defense stuff, 3-day stuff that's going to be geared towards what they need. A lot of it with the law enforcement and military side, there's a little, it's quite a bit different subject that we have to cover. But if you look over on the left, you'll see the suit there, right? And that particular suit, it has what we call face recognition. So if you look at the center of the chest, you'll see a picture of someone. So that will allow someone to, is it an old man, an old lady? Is this the HVT, the high value target we're looking for? You can adjust your use of force based on that, or you can just make it even put a color there and say, hey, go into this room, get the guy in with the red on the chest, extract him out, or anybody in blue or anybody in green will be treated as if they're, smaller or less physical people. And this will help people adjust their use of force. The front of the chest piece is Molly, so you can attach other stuff to it. But if you're fighting another conventional force, they may attach weapon systems there. For some of our training years ago, we would attach a simulated IED on someone with a trigger, and then, different ways. When somebody comes into a room, they're automatically hit with a guy that has an explosive device on them. Then what are you going to do there? And then there's hidden pockets in the front chest piece that you reach under to deploy training knives. So you could be approaching me or interviewing me, and then out of nowhere, jack in the box moment, there's a training knife, hits you, and then you're having to react from that moment as an individual or as a unit to solve that problem. Pants has pockets in the back, and even the back of the chest piece, there's weapons can slide in the high waistline. So if you snap somebody down and you acquire a weapon system from them, handgun or knife, if that tool was used, if you just threw it in the corner somewhere, threw it in a pile with somebody else's weapons, that weapon could have been used in a crime last week and you need to be able to link it to the individual you have it. So if you're in law enforcement, you need to have a protocol for that when you're taking these tools off people. And sometimes if you're moving in slow, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're having to move dynamically through a structure and you're having to cuff these guys and get up onto another room, these things can become confusing. And then when they have to go to court, they can wiggle their way out of it being their weapon, So those are things to think about. The pants, you can take the pads out and wash them. The helmet, I really spent a lot of time on comfort for that. It has, and you could probably back up and show the helmet on the another. It's right there. You could click on that, and there's a piece of Velcro that can come undone at the bottom, and there's wire mesh, so it doesn't fog up, and it's sitting a little further enough away from the face to where it won't fog up at all. The visor is actually a hockey company in the U.S. makes the visor. It's really thick, and it has a metal frame like a football helmet, American football or hockey helmet, wire frame that we've covered up. And then the ears are covered up as well, so you can use simunition rounds with this. I have the fabric will Velcro to the bottom of it in case we're doing clinch work or, our their head smashes into it, that it doesn't cut the crease of the eye, around the eyebrow, some real thin tissue. So if that engages in metal, you may end up, causing somebody a stitch or two. So we want to keep it on when we're doing that. But if you have a hot day in Fort Bragg, North Carolina in June in a shoot house and you're wearing this suit, it's going to fog up real quick. So we've learned through over 15 years of development on this suit, what works and what doesn't work, for the way we do our training. Some people may have a giant red man suit and they really just want a guy walking around in a mat room so they can hit him with a baton or something. And if that's what they need to do, that's fine. This suit's designed to be more dynamic and create scenarios then to help you create good judgment decisions in the moment as an individual or as a team on how to solve that problem. So that's, it's the most advanced suit in the fact that you're going to create people to make decisions and decision makers based on the training. And training is the number one way. Scenario-based training is the only way to create good decision making in the real world. You can talk about it in a slideshow and we can all agree what to do, but until we get in that moment under stress, are we going to make that decision? I may know it, but we're working as a team. Did the guy next to me do the right thing? Now, am I going to have to readjust and fix the problem for him because he's overwhelmed with what's going on and seeing what we call white static in the moment, making bad judgment decisions. So all of these things tie together, and we're always evolving that suit as well. So that might have been more information than you needed to know, but now you know.
No, we all need to know all of it.
This, in my personal opinion, I mean, I've got one right here, but I find this as an essential thing if you're doing an appendix carry. And I didn't realize just how much of a difference this little piece of leather actually makes in terms of comfort. So it's essential to have one of these. No doubt.
It's standard with the mini dagger. There's a mini single edge and double edge. And we've talked about making it standard with the full size, but now they just make it more of an option. I sell those. In fact, there's one item I sell more of than anything on my website is the leather back plates. You've got to have them. And once you do, you forget there's even a blade there. There's no printing. It's comfortable, easy to roll this thing out. So just roll it out with your hand, be able to make good control of it.
Show that again. Yeah.
So here, a lot of it, when we carry the appendix, and when I do carry the appendix, it's not running straight down. It's creased at an angle, so it runs in the side of your hip, right? So it should be in an angle, so that way, even when you sit down, it's not digging. So it's slightly off your 12 o'clock. You can either carry it on your right or left side, but it's going to be more sitting at 11 o'clock at an angle, going at inward. Now, when I grab it, I find it with the pants, and then I can run my finger down to it. But once I feel the ring, it comes in. When I pull it, I don't pull it out and then try to find it. When I do, I roll it, and my finger wraps as it comes out. And the best training you can do is just sit down, run your finger across it, roll it to here, and then push it back in. That's 60% of your defense is getting this tool out under stress in the moment, depending on what grappling entanglement you're in, standing on the ground. And as it comes out, your finger wraps it up. I prefer not to slide it past the big knuckle because I can take my finger in and out, but I also have pressure if I want to slice this direction here, right? It's going to allow my palm to keep it rigid against my palm. If you slide your knuckle all the way through, it can slide down your palm. So I leave it just here, but it gives me the ability to take my finger out if I need to. My thumb rests on top right here in this position. So that way I can have that pressure, and I can rotate the blade if it is the single edge that we end up working with. Now, if I want to do a forward grip, I hook it with my ring finger, pull it, put it in my palm, my other fingers wrap around it, and now the thumb pad, we call it, actually fits in your palm. We don't need a guard. Some people say, hey, well, why don't you have a guard on this? And the guard in some terms is called training wheels. A lot of times you use your palm to stop things from sliding. So when your palm rests, the thumb pad holds it here. So now I can punch straight with it, or I can have a slight angle. And that type of a stab is harder to block than in arcing motions, right? Invert the blade, rotate it inside the cavity, slice on the way out. So then that way, if they have a leather jacket on, you're penetrating through that, slicing on the way out, as opposed to just slicing. So these are the things I end up teaching students right away. And then the repetition of getting it out and clearing garments. And, people talk about the sheath. The sheath is designed so it doesn't get hung on anything. If you're running it in kit, it's usually the center of your chest hid behind other stuff, and you'll roll it out the same way. When I designed this, it was basically designed, to be sheathed all the way up to here, because handles will get caught on your rifle sling, caught on ladders, on seat belts. If you're wearing garments, it will print. Also, you don't want somebody else grabbing the tool. So if you have this big handle and it's just Kydex, it's too easy for them to grab it and then use it against you, right? So if you have a big handle and it's on you anywhere, even in your pants, somebody can grab it over the cloth of your shirt, pull it, and start stabbing you through your cloth, and they don't need to even clear it to put holes in you, right? So if you do have a lot of locking mechanisms on it, it's hard to get that out in the fight. So it being sheathed here, it doesn't get hung on anything and has the perfect retention for me to slide this out smooth and quick, rotate my hand around it, and then I can create space. This knife is not, you can knife fight with it, but it's not designed to be a dueling knife. It's designed to create space, right? So if somebody gets me an entanglement, I can create space. If I need to grab another tool, a firearm or something here, let me see what I have here. If I'll just grab mine here. If you need to hold a firearm, if you need to control here with a firearm here, I can grab this with it in my hand and reach and transition to the firearm here, right? And shoot with that same hand, because I might be manipulating somebody else I don't want to shoot or creating space on them. Or I may have to transition to it with this hand, and now I can still have a steady shooting platform. With a long gun or with your rifle, you still can manipulate this in your hand to engage that threat. But I also could be moving to less than lethal. I use this to create space. I went to OC, I went to taser, I went to baton. I cut them, I got compliance. So then I'm going to hold it like this. Here I'm learning to use your pinky and your other 3 fingers here to grab. So I may create a space. Now I'm holding them, pinning them, controlling them. I choose not to utilize the tool in a way to stab them with, or if it's the rescue tool and I just hammer fist them with the carbide tip, I now may just go to grabbing and manipulating them this way with my hands. So that way it becomes like, almost like, think about what animals do. Some animals can retract their claws. Here you may deploy this, but I also am retracting it to be able to handle you and not hurt you anymore, right? Especially if you're doing executive protection or you need to bound around people. You need to protect yourself or other people. I may be having it in my support hand, and I will hook people, what we call gaffing the arm and turning them, or I may just use my hand to turn them or snap them down with it still in my hand and not utilize the tool that way. So it'll link to so many situations that bridge the gap between empty hand and edge weapon. If I wanted to duel someone, I would rather have obviously my folder, or you looked on there and saw my 185. I would rather duel with this. This is 4.5 inches of D3 steel, and it's going to give me more dueling range. My other blade, and there's a 7-inch blade that has modifications to even become a bayonet, but that larger knife is only 4.5 ounces, and it has a locking sheath on it as well to carry concealed. And I can show that later. I don't know if I have it right here on my table, but I can grab one, and show that if need be. But that has a locking clip on it as well, so I can really conceal that. If you go to my Instagram, SOCP_solutions, there's a video on there where I'm actually showing how to carry that in a concealed manner, a 7.5-inch blade. And a lot of guys in the SF community will use that. And even the federal side, when they go to other countries and they're not allowed to carry firearms, had units going to Africa and they were told they'd get weapons when they got there. And several times they didn't give them what they needed. So they travel with these knives just until they could acquire some stuff,
So do you want to go through each of these?
I want to. Yeah. One thing I want to take a look at right here, since we're on this, the 178 I noticed is on your website. You said that's coming back after the first of the year, and I'm looking to grab a second one.
Well, you can actually get after our conversation, I thought that I had told my crew to put that one back up because I've got like 30 of them in stock. And I called her yesterday. She put it on it last night. So literally on the SOCP Gear site now, the 178 is up. That's this one here that has an edge on one side of it here. And that one, has a good cutting edge on it, serrations, but I can use the back of it here if I just need to snap and hook somebody without cutting them, and then manipulate it in that direction here. And it leaves the blade running forward, this direction here, so I can slice and hook or gaff,
It's also great when you have restrictions in foreign countries. We're operating in foreign countries where you can't use double-edged weapons. So we're kind of, we're relegated to that. But I mean, that's one that even if I were stateside at the moment, that's the one I would carry anyway, because that's my personal preference. So.
Yeah, and even in the States, daggers are illegal to carry in the U.S., but they don't usually bother people. It's kind of like, all right, if as long as you're not doing anything you shouldn't do. I have yet to find someone that gotten hemmed up for having a dagger unless they were hemmed up for something else. There's a mini single edge as well, and that one's been pretty popular for people to carry, and females have been really running with the mini a lot, and for their purses and things like that. And then giving them proper ways to utilize the tool, and utilizing this. Our baseline is if he grabs your weapon system, you pin your handgun down, and I can show you. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for over 30 years, and I can show you a lot of ways to retain your weapon system. But you get 2 or 3 guys on you, or one athletic guy that's your equal or greater, you're going to need a tool. And I would not carry a firearm or be responsible for a firearm on me without some sort of edge weapon that you can deploy effectively with your support hand under stress. The problem of it is people don't always realize they're getting stabbed. So you can put a lot of holes in them and they don't even know it yet. And if you get multiple people on you and you're stabbing this guy to get him off, and his 4 or 5 buddies jump on you too. So targeting is key. I use the term touch the tonsils and stir the pot. So it would be a basic outside collar tie up, taking the tool here once it comes out of your kit or your pocket, slice up the body, plunge it up straight into here. And if you aim towards the tonsils and start stirring the pot, that's going to be a switch. There's switches and there's valves. Valves, you have to wait for them to bleed out. A switch, you're hitting all the nerves and everything, but he's going to be suffocating right now. All his attention is going to go to breathing. Then I may fish, or what we call gaff, the elbow that's grabbing it, turn him, get your firearm off, and then shoot his buddy in the face that's coming at you with a machete. And that's what we call a die less often approach, right? Doesn't mean it's going to work, but, you get multiple people getting on you. You don't, you have to protect yourself or a loved one or, your buddy next to you. This is work, but the use of force in that's going to vary, make sure that, it's in a situation where it's just not some little booger that wants to just grab it, and you could probably tune him up anyway. And you say, all right, I'm just going to stab this guy in the throat. Well, you still may end up getting in trouble. Yeah. Depending on the use of force in the situation.
Yeah. I was telling you a few days ago that there was an officer over here that was killed about a month ago. It was because the suspect was able to wrestle the officer's gun away from him and was able to get it out of his holster, and he shot and killed that officer in cold blood in the middle of the day. And I thought to myself, when I saw the video of that happening, I thought to myself, if this officer would have just had one of those tools in his chest, he could have, and if he knew how to use it properly, he could have prevented that situation. Now, the problem you run into here is that police officers, and you run into this with certain departments across the United States, depending on laws, they can't carry. But this is where the rescue tool comes in. So this is a different thing that they can carry that's not a knife, but can be used the same way because you're trained the same way.
Absolutely. I do a lot of training with the law enforcement officers for the rescue tool. Carbide tip here, so it may be blunt trauma here, and but it's got a carbide tip. When you break glass, you need a carbide tip. There's a lot of people that use steel that try to break glass, but I can promise you, you're going to have to hit it harder than you think, especially if you're in a life or death situation, seated in a vehicle and you're in water and you need to crack it. You need to crack it, and then you need to circle it. And what I tell guys to pull the glass outward if you're reaching in. And that way, see my hand I'm holding here. We talked about this grip here. because when I break the glass, circle, pull it out so the tent makes the glass unfold outward. If you drive it inward, it's going to cover up the locking mechanism, and you're going to be clearing it again. Clear it, pull it out, reach in, unlock the door, open it up. Visual, as if you open up the door to a room, right? Weapons of opportunity. Here it's a rescue situation. Foot on the brake, cut the car off if you need to, cut the seatbelt, prioritize that. Snap them out. Cut the seatbelt a little bit higher because there's a little plastic detent that allows the seatbelt not to slide down. If you cut it real low, you're going to be cutting it again. So it's better to cut it high across the chest here as opposed to reaching down. Cut it, pull them out. If it's a combatant, you may use this to create space to get back to a taser or a firearm as you're extracting them. But we have different extraction techniques for that and support elements and things like that. But, there's water everywhere. So if your vehicle wrecked, you really need a tool like this to break the glass, cut your family free and get out of the vehicle. Or if you need it to pull it out because some turd's trying to reach into your vehicle, you can start hammer fisting them with this to create the space. Use your feet to push them back between the A and the B pillar, create that space. Shut your door and get off the X, mentality with it. But it is something that you could travel with in Europe. I've traveled with it when I've been there. I've did some work with the European Union anti-terrorist team, and I ran around with my dagger for a while, and then they're like, Greg, you can't have that now, because I kind of took it a little bit light and did the same thing in Sweden when I was there. And I think Sweden might be a little bit easier, but in Europe, you might as well be carrying a firearm than if you in certain situations.
Yeah. Now I know you kind of touched on this when you were explaining the techniques and things when you were showing the dagger. But I'd like to emphasize, if people do pick these things up, and of course these are, as I was saying, this is part of my everyday carry, these tools that you've created, and I feel lost if I'm outside without them. If I leave or if I jump out of the car and I don't have them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the importance of getting the training tool with it. So you're learning. So that's essential. I mean, it's you want to make sure you get the trainer with all of these things.
Yes, sir. And it comes with a combo.
There's the book. Everybody should get this book.
Yeah, everybody should get those books too. But go back to the trainer.
The trainer here. What's good about that is you need reps in deploying this. You need reps doing it. And I carry it for the reasons I told you. But one of the number one reasons I carry it is if someone attacks you with an edge weapon, I would obviously rather have a bigger. I usually carry this and my larger folder with me, and then sometimes some other tools depending on what I'm doing. But 80% of the time you're not gonna see the knife. A guy's not gonna come up to you more than likely if he really wants, unless he's threatening or robbing you, and you can give him whatever. If it's a mugging or something on one of us, a bigger guy, that they're going to get on you. You're going to probably end up eating a stab, and you're going to get your hands on it. So a lot of the techniques we do working to an outside tie control, managing of the wrist. I can deploy this with either hand, and I can start working him over, or I will sever the tendon in his bicep and then feed the blade back into him, utilizing this same knife from an outside tie, or gaff the bicep across the body here and hook it, take his whole bicep out right here, and then bring it back into him, and then back up to the neck, and taking his working hand out quick. And I can show you a lot of techniques, and I can grapple it away from a lot of guys, but it's always not about me and that guy. It's about the environment. Does he have a support element? Who else is with me? Am I fighting around furniture or other obstacles? When he mugged me, 80% of the time you're not going to see it, and there's probably a more likelihood he's going to stab you one time. I'm going to fight through it, because most of the time you can, but you don't know if you're on a time or slowly bleeding out, and then you're on that golden hour of getting to a trauma hospital. So you should always know where the nearest trauma hospital is, because the nearest hospital is not going to be able to open you up and close up that artery that's bleeding out, and you slowly, you're going to die within that golden hour. So know where your trauma hospitals are, wherever you travel or wherever you live, and don't sit there and wait for the police to come or the ambulance to come, because you'll bleed out by the time they get there, put you on a gurney, strap your head down, and go through all their protocols to get you there. Now they're going to take you to the nearest hospital, and they won't have somebody there that will go in. You hop in a freaking car, and you get yourself as fast as you can to the nearest trauma hospital so they can open you up. That's my advice.
Well, the next thing is, speaking of bleeding out, the next thing I would like to take a look at would be the belt that doubles as a tourniquet. Now, I don't have one of these, but at some point I'm going to be able to get my hands on one of these things. But this is a great product you've come up with here. Not because you advertise it as just a backup tourniquet belt, but there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Yeah, and you have to prioritize, with this. I pulled the instructions out to show some. I'm going to have to run over there I've got several of them over there, but with this here, the Windsor is built into it, but it's low profile to where it doesn't print. It's smaller, and I have it rounded off, so when you use it here, right, this is your Windsor to create the crank. So it works like a cat tourniquet. There's hook and loop here that will then loop all the way back around. There's a video on there where I kind of show it real quick and some instructions on there. But when it loops through here, it will Velcro back down on itself here. Now, you have to prioritize how much you load this out, because there's concealed things inside of this. Here, I have a Velcro tab that you can hook with your finger behind your back. So when you hook this, you can pull the Velcro and you'll pull this out. Here I actually have an X-Acto blade here tucked into it. This has an X-Acto blade and a little saw built into it here. It doesn't come with it, but this Velcro tab allows me to conceal it all the way. The other thing that I run with is a key. This is a standard handcuff key for the US. It comes on Velcro. I can hook it and pull this out. So now I have this little key on this tab here. Then we have these other plastic pieces here where now you can put money in here, right? Moisture of your body can deteriorate the fabric or the paper over time. And I have another one here where you can put, here I have some ibuprofen. This is legal. This is not, any special. So for some of you guys, I don't recommend, doing any illegal drugs or anything like that. So don't use this to hide your stash, right? This is not what it's designed for, right? I don't condone that. But if you do have it loaded out, this is going to take time when you have to put this thing on, depending on where you have it at here and what limit is. So for me, I wouldn't put it in a pocket that would coincide with my arm or my leg diameter, right? So understand that, or be ready to take it out. And then I have some instructions that you would unfold and fill out. And those instructions will have the nearest trauma hospital to where you're at. Medicines that you're allergic to, you fill that out, right? Contact information, because if your cell phone got stolen or lost, who can you call? Do you know all your numbers by heart, right? The numbers to your doctor for your medical information if you're traveling. So anything that you think you would need, nearest embassy written down on there, not stuff that you would be afraid to lose, but stuff you've got to have, Now, if you do have to write down numbers that are sensitive, then you may have to write them down backwards or in a code that, you will understand, how to utilize those numbers in an emergency. But having that paper on you, that's tucked away there with crucial stuff is important to have. Probably the most important thing you'll have on you, besides maybe some extra cash, if you needed it. The tourniquet is nice because if you're ever in a active shooter situation and you're bleeding out, you will not probably make it out of there within 30, 40 minutes of the encounter, because they're going to lock it down. Somebody's going to come in there. They're going to secure the area. They're going to have to, SWAT team's going to get there, secure it, and then they're going to start monitoring who's injured. You're going to have to fend for yourself. So understand basic ways to make improvised tourniquets, compression wraps, things like that, for yourself or your loved ones. You know, imagine if your child was injured next to you and bleeding out. Would you know what to do? Don't rely on other people. You know, take it upon yourself to know real basic stuff, because there are no takebacks. There's no redo, right? It's a done deal, right? So take 15, 20 minutes to kind of learn a few things. Even if you don't get to practice, at least have it in your Rolodex of old crap, you know.
And if you're going to put a tourniquet on somebody, write down what time you put the tourniquet on.
Yeah. On here, it does have the time listed on there. And surprisingly, you know, on this little tab here, this little tab right here is when you crank this down, it will fit and lock right here. And then you can write the time down on here. But there's better instructions on there. And also you can still use this buckle piece for that as well to tie it down. But I designed this, something I wanted to do. I wanted to make what I would call, you know, my perfect utility belt, you know, that would have some medical stuff, information, everything on it. So I've been playing with that, and I've been playing with some other stuff too. You know, I come from a design background. So I like problem solving and creating stuff, and I kind of use that same design process for the development of the techniques and the tactics that we use.
Yeah. So and to go further from this, so I mean that's pretty much the stuff that you offer on your website. But you also did a collaboration. That was the collaborations you did with Benchmade. You've also done collaborations with Vertex as well. So
yeah,
I want to take a look at some of that, because I carry one of these bags myself. Can we switch Vertex here? I carry the first one there, the tactical sling, and I absolutely love this thing. It's my go-to every single time. I mean, I jump out of the car and it's across my chest, and I use it for other things, you know, professional situations and things like that. But this bag is great. I absolutely love it.
Well, that bag is designed for your phone to fit in it, and then your phone will slide in that compartment, and then you can record. You can undo the flap. You can take it and you can actually clip it to another bag. So you've got a sling bag or a book bag, you didn't want it just around your waist. You can clip it, and then you can open it up and then fold the flap down and just record everything around you. Or you could flip it down and then use it, or even watch videos, or for some guys can use it to track movements of where their guys are with it as well. Then there's a hidden compartment for a dagger as well that will slide out of either side of it. And then the bottom of it will actually come unzipped. There's a pocket in the bottom, but when that comes unzipped, it will actually reverse out. So you could put a full-size handgun in there or a water bottle in there when you reverse that bottom pocket out. If you need
collecting evidence, space. If you need it, you need extra room if you're out collecting evidence. And this is where dropping that down, you think, okay, well, you got this little tiny bag. No, you can reverse that pocket out, and you've got so much more space down in there.
And that's exactly what. So there's lots of little features with that. That was the first bag I did with them before fanny packs even came back. And I told them, I said, hey, I'm going to bring fanny packs back in style. I still would rock fanny packs because I like to have my stuff with me. And then now it's evolved into a larger fanny pack as well there. So that's the sling pack. And then the larger version here, we're actually changing the front a little bit on the larger one, because the larger one had the same features that fold down. This is actually a prototype you guys are seeing here. This prototype for this larger one, you can put it across your body, but the fabric in the front right here that I found and I had them use here, you can't see through it, but you can record through it. So I can drop my phone in here and hit record. You can't see the lights or anything. The images are a little grainy, but you can pick up everything around you. So you can strap it across your body here, record everything, pull it out, send information or have that information. So if you end up being in a shady situation somewhere and hey, I don't really know these guys, I need some proof of what's going on for later. There's the before, during, and the after. This can be for the after. Right? I need to find these guys later, right? You can record it, or you set it up somewhere because you've got to listen or watch somebody. You could set your bag down and hit record and walk out of the room and get video and everything on your phone in a nanosecond, right? But lots of ways to use it. I'm not trying to go too far down that rabbit hole of it, but it's there. Then it has the compartment here where you can put your firearm in here. This is where I carry my configuration here. So I'm running with this, and then it has compartments on the side. So you could put a really full-sized Glock with all the optics and even a suppressor on it, because it will extend all the way down in this pocket and even have room for something else on the other side.
Is that what that pocket's for? I've been trying to figure out what that pocket was for.
These are the pieces, but sometimes I'll put a rat tourniquet in there, or even an extra mag. There's clips so it can slide into that pocket there, but you could run it all the way down in there, and you could literally put two handguns, one sliding in on either side of it, but save that for the next John Wick, But on the back side, there's pockets here to where it's closer to you, but you can clip all your knives and Leatherman or something like that here. But I also could take everything out and then use this to slide on my pull bag, right? So there's like a pass through that Velcros all the way up. And then this other one is a storage compartment here to where I'm storing all my other stuff in here. Flashlight, another blade. I've got a tourniquet in here and some medical stuff. Wallet could go in there, whatever you wanted to put in that particular one. But this is my normal one I'm running with right now.
I think with the fanny pack, I mean, I haven't found too much of a need for it on the sling, but if I had the fanny pack, I would want the rapid access pull tabs on it.
Yeah.
To where you can get those. I mean, that's an extra, or maybe it comes standard with the fanny
This
pack.
is going to come standard. We're going to add that back to it. It wasn't extra, but we've got this actual pull tab here for the quick pull. And a lot of times I'll run across my chest here, but sometimes depending on what I do, I could put it around my waist, but mainly it's just a strap, and it's real common now to run around with these, restaurants and places that I go that I can at least have something. But I like it to where I have the holster I have in here. I'll also run as an appendix carry, because the way I redesigned the Velcro mechanism, I can unhook my concealed carry appendix one and click it on me, leave it in the car, drop the sling bag, or I may decide, hey, I don't want it on me all the time, my body, I want it somewhere else, and then you're gonna slip it right back in there, and you can kind of move back and forth.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to take a look at was the organizer, the bag organizer.
Yep. The insert. What I designed, that was one of the earlier ones I did as well too, because you can attach all your items. What I originally designed that for, it really came back from feedback in 2009, 10, and 11, where we would have people go into places where they wanted to blend in, and they would not run around with U.S. stuff. They would literally buy bags from people on the street, and they would have to fix them out so you would fit, because your clothing, your hair, your perfume, everything is a standout. But you could take it real quick and drop this in there with all your stuff in any kind of bag, and it would be organized to where you could then get to it quick. Now it's moved into just placing things from one bag to another, or securing it to where you can grab it. So it becomes a chassis for whatever you need. And it being a plastic material, you can cut it real easy. So you can clip it. If you look at the way it is, I designed it where two little real clip wire cutters, or even emergency shears, you can cut 4 little spots, and you've cut it in half, and you put it in a smaller purse, to where now your purse might be flimsy, but now you added a chassis to it. So when you add your handgun or a heavier tool and magazine in there, it's not weighted down printing that actual bag, right? Now guys are using it for medical stuff and moving from larger bag to different bags, but it was designed to fit, take any bag, create a chassis, and then you can load it out.
The overflow pouch. This is something I've kind of, and I'm asking you this now because I didn't ask you the other night.
It doesn't show. Go to my SOCP gear site. I added there's images, really good images there. On the Vertex one, they're not really showing it. But on the SOCP gear site, that's it. You'll see how I'm holding it there. Flip through the images that you can see there. Back out just a little bit. Or is that clear for everybody else? I know it's small for me. But show it where it's loaded out like that. So what you can do is there's a zipper pocket in the front you can load out with coins. And I put a small fishing weight in there as well with coins. And then you could put pens or pencils. But I found that worked better was rolled up USB cables, right? And then you zip up the small pouch. And then you zip up the big one, you roll it up. Now you've got a SAP that you can utilize. That video kind of gives a quick breakdown. But with that, when you're traveling, you can have a roll of quarters or something with some weights all separated. And then you can load this thing out and create a nice handle there. I also have the, let's see if I've got.
And this incorporates into all the bags, so you can just add it into it. Right?
Exactly. So here's with this here, you can Velcro the back of it into any bag, so it just can go anywhere. But once I unzip it and load it out here, unzip it here, and then I load out this one pocket because this is heavy duty fabric here, and then there's slots here to put other stuff for the support structure. Once it's all zipped up here, take these tabs and I wrap it up tight. Wrap up the bottom tight here. Now, I can use this strap to hang on to it because I may drop it and go hands-on to go to another tool. I can hold it, but I also can use this for Ezekiel choke. So I can drop underhook, drop it to the hand behind this, bring this underneath the chin, and then strangle from this position here with this. So I train some of my guys, depending on the course, how to utilize cloth and other things like that. Actually, even this bracelet is handcuffs and also Ezekiel choke with this bracelet I designed, which is not for sale.
Yeah. Well, I was going to, let's hope it'll be for sale at some point. The overflow pouch, I was going to ask you about that because I wasn't sure exactly what the purpose was, but now I know, and guess what I'm going to be doing as soon as we finish up. So I'm going to be getting one of those. So is there anything else on the Vertex collaboration? Did I miss anything?
We've got, no, not right now. We've got a bag coming out right now that's a larger sling bag that's going to be really cool. Look for it next year, but I'm packing that sucker full of just goodies. And a lot of it, I told him, I said, well, you get me on a video and I'll break it down. This really didn't when I designed the fanny pack, I had an idea to do this, but they didn't want to do this. So I designed it into the fanny pack, and then we were pretty much through the finish line that the people realized that I actually designed a self-defense improvised tool inside of the bag that I had. And then they have a click button afterwards that they would talk about it. But a lot of times I would explain something to somebody and then they would explain it, and then certain things kind of get left out. You know how that goes. But I use it with my guys so they can travel and then understand how to do this, but also create certain things that I'm utilizing here on their own on an improvised manner in case they don't have this. What else can you utilize to kind of do the same thing? Well,
I will be looking for that sling bag after the first year. So, okay, so your book. Let's talk about your book. I showed you before we started. I grabbed the original from back in the day, but this is the updated version.
Well, and updated means it's still 15 years old. And the one you had, I wrote in 2005, and then in 2010, I redid it because that company wasn't paying royalties to me and Hoist and Rodrigo and all these guys. But in my contract with them, I wrote in that if they don't pay me within X number of days, our rights reserved back to me. So I took control of it, printed out a bunch of it for my guys. But the book, there's newer stuff that we show, but it does have a little bit of SOC P tactical stuff in the red section. The old, so you'll see a lot of grappling in the beginning, which doesn't mean you need to know grappling first, but it's a baseline for fundamentals. And then what I designed in this that a lot of people don't have was there's what's called optional and follow-up. So the yellow is optional, and then the red like follow-up. Those numbers coincide with the technique number. So it creates a metric. So if I was at you in my guard and I scissor sweeped you, I mounted you, where do I go to next? That number would be a follow-up. Now I go armbar, I go rear naked choke, I go cross collar choke, I go Americana. If I couldn't sweep you, what's an option? Maybe I do a hip heist. Maybe I do an elevator sweep. Maybe you stand up and I dump you back, right? So it creates a metrics within inside of a book that you always can find your way on where you want to go. And then in the purple chap, there's more clinch work, right? And then the brown goes a little bit into the weapons techniques we were doing back then. Some of it's still relevant, things I've evolved. Goes into biting, eye gouging, head butting, how to actually hold tie pads properly, right? How to wrap your hands and how boxer fractures from having your hands, getting used to your hands wraps to proper ways to do headbutts.
Workouts. Yeah, there's calisthenics workouts in there as well in the back.
Anatomy. Here, the anatomy section goes into, what happens when you get knocked out, right? Common skull fractures. If you catch somebody in a Americana or a Kimura, what are you actually tearing up? You know what I mean? And that number coincides. So if I'm actually teaching you the Americana, it'll go, okay, G, bent arm bar. And you'll realize, okay, since the arm is being bent this way, this is what's ripping in the shoulder. Americana is going this way, straight arm bars, the elbow is getting snapped here. And then we go into bleed outs. How long does it take you to bleed out? Yeah. So the organs that you may stab or strike. But if I stab you, there's timers that I researched based on World War II, but they were a little off. This was as close as I could get based on the feedback that I had gotten from soldiers, medics, and then even surgeons, But a lot of times with the bleeding, people can bleed out too quick. Even if you stab to the heart, a guy can be there for 15 seconds. And gunfights are won and lost in nanoseconds. So the targeting we had to do in a CQB environment is you don't have time enough to wait for them to bleed out. But also knowing that, that's not listed in there is, do it from both sides. If somebody's not in good shape or an older person, if they, what happens to their heart rate when they get cut, it's going to speed up because it's not equalizing the pressure. So there's a big chance that they'll go into cardiac arrest before they bleed out. The other thing is called shock. You lose enough blood, you're going to go into shock right away. You're not passed out. You're not dead yet, but you're going into shock. You also can go into shock because you look down and it was a C cut. You see your intestines hanging out called the blue worm. And then you like, oh, I'm freaking dying. And you pass out. Before you physically would have passed out, you mentally went into shock and you shut down, right? There's videos that I've studied where guys have gotten their carotid arteries cut in a knife fight and blood was squirting out. He backed up, he looked at it and he falls out. And I sent that to a trauma surgeon that really helps me with this. And I said, I don't think he lost enough blood to pass out. And he goes, I don't think he did either. He looked at the fact that he was cut, and people will do that. They will faint, right? So know that sometimes it doesn't pay to look at the cut. If you look at the cut, what I learned from Pat Tadina, Ranger Hall of Fame, he's a legend. He died several years ago. He worked with me when we were revamping the Air Marshal program right after 9/11. 9/11 hit in January. I was in Artesia, New Mexico, working with those guys. But something that he would say, he had over 100 and some kills, which he wouldn't even talk about any of them. A very quiet guy, little bitty Filipino descent, but he was Hawaiian, 140 pounds. And he said, when you stab somebody and they look at it, you know you've got them, because I'm going to put 4 or 5 more holes in you. But he also would talk about the shot that people would have, and he'd have that 1,000-yard stare, talking to students. And, so it doesn't pay to assess your wound, know that that's going to happen. You better deal with the threat in front of you, solve that problem, and get to a trauma hospital and get yourself opened up and fixed,
Yeah.
But
the second book, the second book you were in was 100 Deadly Skills Combat Edition with Clint Emerson. It goes into your everyday carry, which you showed in your fanny pack. It pretty much matches up to what was in this book, minus a couple of things. You mentioned a SOC P flashlight. I didn't know you had one of those.
Well, that was in development. It got stalled out. That flashlight, I was working with a U.S. company, and then they lost a big military contract, and money got tight, so it kind of got shelved. But that was had a little bit of striking to it, a little bit of a ring, so you could do almost like a built-in knuckle duster, but you also would flip it and turn it, so when you're shooting, you can maintain a really good purchase with either hand while you were shooting with it as well. And it had a seat belt, or had a glass breaker built into it. But kind of pivoted from that. But Clint, he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome writer. He hit me up, wanted to do some stuff. So I usually, don't work with people, but I like and respected him from his background. So I showed a few techniques in that I would show civilians, and I sometimes utilize in our low vis course. But there's a lot of stuff I won't show and publish that we do that link more towards tactics. A lot of the units that I work with, it's just not, they don't appreciate certain things, being put out.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I mean, I had a laundry list of questions to get to, but, unfortunately, but the thing is that through all of this conversation and talking about all these products, you've pretty much answered most of what these were going to be anyway. So that's kind of helpful. But on that point, we were talking about civilian application. For people that can't commit to full martial arts training, what are the top 3 things that people can do right now to improve their personal safety, in your opinion?
Well, and they can't train. If they can't train, you're going to have to rely on your knowledge and awareness, right? So people say that, always be aware. Well, that has to be a little bit of a habit, but you need to research. And when I say research, I mean, where do you live? Where are the crime areas in your area? What's going on now? You know what? If I grew up, I've been living here for 10 years. Well, guess what? Over the last 3 years, things have changed. Is it the subway? Is it this? Where are these accidents happening? Research that, right? So knowledge is that, know where you're, like I said, your nearest trauma hospitals are. How would you get there? How's the traffic flow? What legally can you carry? What state, country, county, your inner city will have different rules. You need to know the rules of where you're at. Now, you may choose to color outside the lines, but know your limitations as well, too. I'm 57 years old right now. I can handle myself pretty good against an average guy, but I'm not half of what I was when I was competing and, all the time and fighting every day with my guys, right? I still run an MMA gym, but I've trained worked with some of the best fighters in the world and had them come to the units that I'm at. Tim Kennedy was with me for 4.5 years before he went to the UFC. So I know what some of the baddest guys feel like. And, you have to prepare yourself. So, you want to train, you want to do physical stuff, but whatever you do has a link to getting to a tool, right? Because at some point there can be more than one of them, and they targeted you for a reason, right? So understand and then have the mentality to use the tool, right? And draw lines in the sand. You have to figure out, can I walk away? Will you walk away? At what point do you fight? What is that? What is your fight? I can't tell you what your fight is. Are you a 90-year-old lady with a walker and you make it to the local grocery store? Well, if you're in the U.S., I'm going to tell you, get a purse, get a revolver, You know, somebody comes up and grabs you, shove the purse up in them, put a hole in them with that revolver, make sure you don't fall, right? And then try not to fall once you put a hole in them, and get your walker and get away from them and call 911, right? That would be your whole part of your lesson, right? Because she's 90 years old. She probably should have had somebody go with her, travel as a pack. Don't run around by yourself. You know, let people know where you're going. You know, when you're out these days, you have to worry about drugs, you know, females being drugged, but guys could be drugged. You could be out with your boys saying, I got all my boys with me. I'm good. Okay. Somebody drops a hit of acid in a bunch of drinks you have because you're really drunk and don't realize what's going on. And they're going to watch you guys start chasing butterflies. And then they're going to come up and beat the snot out of you and take all your stuff, you know. Or, you know, whatever. So everybody's a target depending on what's going on and how they want to do it. Now, you don't hear about that happening to guys, and they may or may not would tell you. I don't know of any guys that have had that happen to them. Well, no, I do know guys that have been, but it wasn't that they weren't robbed. They were being an asshole, and somebody slipped some acid in their stuff and watched them, you know, freak out because they just didn't like them. This is, you know, younger days.
Or in other countries, they drug you and you wake up missing a kidney.
Yeah. So those things can happen. So, you know the environment that you're in. You know, if you go to Africa, you know what? I know I got to watch out for lions if I'm out in the woods. I got to watch out for, you know, hippos and things like that, like what's killing people, you know? You got to watch out for animals in the U.S. too. What animals kill people in the U.S.? And what's the number one animal that kills more people in the U.S.? Might shock people. Deer kill more people. Why? Because you're driving down the road and you see a deer and you don't slow down. Why? Because that ain't that first deer. It's the pack that's running behind them. And one of them jumps right through your windshield and freaking you hit a tree and die, you know?
Oh dear.
But know these things. And it's not just people, it's your environment that you're living in, and try not to be there. Avoid things. You know, my wife, I used to go out and party when I was younger and stuff, but she's, you know, I know so much now. I'm quite a bit more paranoid about where I go and who I hang out with and what I do. But my lifestyle is different. A younger Greg, I was out partying all the time. I was hanging out with my boys. I was living life. So, and I'm not telling young people not to do that, but you need to travel in a pack, travel with people that you trust. Don't hang out with people that are going to get you in trouble. You know, some of my best buddies, great fighters, but they would fight everybody. Next thing you know, you're in a fight with a bunch of people you didn't even start because you're hanging out with the wrong people. Or, you know, egos doesn't allow you to walk away, you know? Well, you know what? I'll walk away, but guess what? If I want you bad enough, I'll get a good picture of you somehow or find you, and I'll come back 15 minutes later with about 30 dudes or whatever, and we can discuss it now. You know what I mean? Not to say that's the right for everybody, you know, but if that was the case when I was younger, now, you know, you may call some authorities to do whatever, but best thing is to walk away and not be there, because if you do end up being in an altercation as a young man too, you know, court costs is expensive, you know, and it's a lose-lose situation. You put him in the hospital, you can go to jail. You punch a guy and the concrete cracks his head and he dies, you're doing time. Involuntary manslaughter, right?
That's right.
You fight a guy because you're bigger than him, or he pisses you off and he puts a piece of steel in your gut and you're bleeding out in the concrete, you're going to wish you walked home, right? So pick your battles. Ego is the number one killer for youth, for young men right now. Ego, because they should have been somewhere else. You know, for females is be with your friends, be careful where you go. Don't always trust a nice guy, you know, and then have somebody with you. And those are things I'm telling you in a real quick lesson. Now, we're not even talking about fighting skill sets, right? We're talking about educating people, create habits, you know, make your house safe, lock your doors, alarms that go off. You know, cameras are good. Lock your vehicle. I fuss at my wife. She likes all the locks to come off in the vehicle. I'm like, baby, don't have all your locks come off. If somebody pops in on the driver's side or behind you because you unlocked all of them and put a gun to one of the kids' heads, you know what I mean? You're going to be doing whatever they ask you to do. So keep your vehicle locked up where all the doors don't pop up. And I can't count the videos I have of carjackings to where the door is unlocked and somebody just runs up and opens up the door and jumps in, or opens up the driver door and then they're froze there, or somebody unlocks the car to load it up, and then when they go to push the buggy back, somebody gets in there and steals their purse or gets in the car, right? So these are habits that you don't think about, because if you don't create habits, you won't see it coming, and it's gonna be too late. If you did see it coming, then good, maybe you can avoid it. But those are habits that hopefully I could go on, but I don't want to waste too much time, talking about common sense stuff.
Well, no, that's okay, because in my experience, sir, you'd be surprised how many people don't understand common sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's good knowledge that you're passing on there, and that goes to my next question. I mean, you've got years in MMA experience. I mean, all of the things you used to do before you started. Can you get that, Lee?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. You got years in MMA experience. You did all of that before SOCP. So, I mean, and you said in the intro video that we played before you came on, you said everybody gets discipline from different places. Do you recommend specific disciplines to people, whether that's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, karate, boxing, whatever, that people can get involved in? What, for civilians I'm speaking of? Or is there just no one size fits all for it?
Well, I think, for one, you want to do something that you're interested in, but I think I like jiu-jitsu. I like a good MMA gym that does jiu-jitsu, MMA striking. Boxing is is a slice of MMA striking, but MMA striking now is a whole nother way of striking where you don't have the big gloves on and you're able to integrate it into your clinch work a little more effectively. Jiu-jitsu for body positioning, but sometimes it's good just to go train with good boxers to manage the range management, and being able to see things come at you quicker because you're hanging out in that fire. That quickness could be to avoid a blade coming at your neck, could be a lot of things. And that range management at that range and understanding of body angles, you learn it, but you have to do it. Knowing it's not enough. You have to fight and spar to develop the range and the timing and the instinct to gravitate to these spots in the moment, and that's where you have to have training to where you're grappling or you're sparring on a regular basis with people that won't get you hurt. So when people go, oh, well, that's the dojo and that's not real work. No, it's not. You're not on the street when you're fighting, but you're developing a skill set that then can translate to that. But also when you do train in these places, know what you're giving up. At my gym, we do a jiu-jitsu a lot, high-end jiu-jitsu. I've got Hoist Gracie gave out his first 5 black belts to me and 4 of the guys at my gym in 2004. I started training Gracie jiu-jitsu in the 90s. Before that, I was doing Thai boxing. As a kid, I was doing taekwondo and karate, and I wrestled all through junior high and high school. But I decided to go the football route and played football in college. But that gave me the discipline, but I went right back to my martial arts. And after that is when I got into the Thai boxing. But even at the height of jiu-jitsu, I never stopped working my Thai boxing at the time. My Thai boxing coach was a pro boxer. But now that's kind of morphed into MMA type striking protocols for developing the timing to take somebody down inside of that range. But the other evolution is to know what you're giving up. MMA does not have all the answers, but you will develop the range management, the skill set to pull off a whole lot of everything else. And you're able to train in a way to develop the instincts to do the other stuff. But you don't want to, I say, burn it from both ends. SOCP is a task specific. So we go straight to what is needed to solve the problem now. Fighting with tools, because you show up with tools and you should have a tool on you. If you don't have some type of tool on you, you're being negligent. It doesn't matter if it's a number 2 pencil or whatever it is, you need a force multiplier with you to increase your likelihood of survivability. But also that gets missed a lot is the environment. I designed the combat cubes back in 2010. They're like giant Velcro Legos, so we can create any environment that we want, because people train, and the evolution that MMA did give you was fighting off of a fixed wall. Like, what martial arts gave you that? Sumo taught you how to spin and maneuver people in and around objects, but it was just pushing somebody out of a circle. They taught you how to fight off the wall, so you could drive somebody into a wall and you'd wall crawl back up, or you pin somebody there. Then the evolution of that is a whole nother art in itself. So you need to know how to fight off that. But if you think about any environment that you're going to fight in, there's core, curves, coffee table, and couches. And if you don't learn how to fight around objects, they can be used for you or against you. So when I developed the combat cube, it's the most essential tool I have when I teach SOC-P. I will set these up in the mat room. They will learn how to cuff, fight, spin, and redirect. Because think about whenever you were in altercation and wherever you may, you can get spun or redirected over an object, right? And you need to learn how to fight around these things, because if there's a coffee table behind you, you could be shoved over that, or you could redirect him, or you talk to him, and as you're talking to him, you're angling where all that furniture is behind this guy that outweighs you by 50 pounds. Well, guess what? When you shove him and he goes flying over that piece of furniture, now you can get on him, or you can break contact and run, right? Or get to another tool. So utilize that. But if you could be a better fighter, but you get shoved down a little crevice of furniture, you can get your break speed off. We learned that in the tubular fighting we did in aircraft training with the air marshals, and then we do training for buses and planes, and you can get spin or redirect in the seats. And if you don't address that right, the initial entanglement, you're going to find yourself in a bad spot. And eventually you might get, if you're a good grappler or a good fighter, you can work your way out of it. But the situation may change around you, or you're protecting someone else, or other elements involved, or multiple people getting on you. So these things become another way to train outside of that. So you need to know what you're really giving up. But go and train and entangle yourself and strike and grapple, and then venture into other things. Be careful. It is, in the martial arts, belt structures are good because it gives you the motivation to continue to train, and it'll bring you to a higher level. But I would recommend go to different gyms that specialize in certain types of fighting. It could be striking, it could be grappling, and you don't have to be a black belt. If you could get a good, baseline, a good year of jiu-jitsu and a good year at a good boxing gym, understand basic wrestling, you can go a long way with an average person, and then implement that. But in doing that, you need to train with people that won't get you hurt, that know how to spar properly, so you can hang out in these spots long enough to figure out where the threats are coming, and then maybe make it a lifestyle, but have that basic understanding. Don't rely on the weapons too, because you're going to have to fight and grapple sometimes to get to these tools. My dagger was designed to make that easier for you, because if I'm teaching shrimp escape,
it links that just on that point, that the dagger links to whatever your fighting style is. It's universal in that respect. Because that's what's so great about it.
I will snap cut. If I throw a snap cut out, I will snap cut here and even push it forward with my hands, and I'm going to the eyes. I am low on the eyes and let it hit. So you're at Lagamato range, long range, snap cutting, boom, boom, getting off. I can gaff, which is called swimming, hooking the arm, moving them, running past them. If he mounts me, pull it out. This becomes my shrimp. I don't stab and pull it out, because they may grab it from a side mount or mount. They're bleeding, but then they take it from you and plunge it in your neck. You bury it in them, and when they shrimp to create space off of it, you need to have enough understanding of the jiu-jitsu to bring your knee through that space you created with the dagger, put your foot on him, stretch him out. Now you're in open guard. You clear his hand. Now you can plunge it into his subclavian or to this top of his skull, and then get back to your feet, right? And get off the X, right? And this can become instinctive, but you need to do it in a way where you don't lose your tools, Preferably you're not pulling a tool in a leverage disadvantage position like a side mount or mount. But if the environment dictates that you do, you have to, right? Make sure you know how to do it in a way to protect that tool, because when he goes for it, you know what he's not able to protect. If I pull this out and he grabs it, is he protecting my hips? Well, I'll shrimp out that way. Now my knee can come in. If he's holding it this way, then I can shrimp out this way, push the elbow, come right back up, and then I can implement this tool. So you integrate it into your fundamentals of grappling. In the clinch, I'm going outside collar tie up. Boom. Now I may put that in his neck and not plunge it in, lay it sideways and give him a chance to vote. Get off of me, let go of my gun. I'm going to cut your effing throat, right? If he votes, then he votes, and you're going to plunge it in his neck. Now, if you're a weak female, you may not give him a chance to vote. You may just plunge it right in his throat, because giving him a chance to vote, he may get his hand up there too quick for you to deal with it, you know? So these are decisions you have to make depending on when you train people, you need to train them in reality. You can't give them some of the arts. They do fear management as opposed to training, which means they build them up with this confidence that some smaller people think that may or may not work. You need to let them know right away, you are weaker, you're going to have to work harder, and it's okay. You need to get to a tool, you know, but teaching a female certain moves doesn't mean that it's wrong. Who's grabbing him? Some skinny crackhead that he can't hardly do anything. Well, that move could probably work for her because he's so weak and out of it, he can break contact, but link it to a tool. When I teach basic wrist escapes, you grab my knife, I'm wrist escaping, plunge it into you right now, and then severing your bicep, and I'm gonna place it in your throat. It's the same wrist escape. You grab it up here, I'm gonna elbow over the top. I may put it right back into you that way, or I may free this hand to scoop this out and then get it into the fight, break contact. But you know, you do have to go back to the legalities of use of force for you. It's going to be different for that 100-pound female, you know, than it is you or me. I'm 210 pounds, you know, I'm 57, but I can still bench press 315. You know, I would be looked at a little bit different. I've been a black belt for 21 years. They're going to treat me different if I plunge a piece of steel in a guy. It's going to have to be, he's got to have a tool in his hand, and the environment's going to have to dictate than a 100-pound female, you know, but they need to know that, you know, if that makes sense. And a lot of this, we say common sense, but people know, but they don't think about it. Like, people know it, but do you actually implement that in your training? That's where it goes back to all the suits. So everything that I designed, there's a reason for it. I even have pads to go on rifles. Designed those 15 years ago. Why do you have pads to go on training rifles? Think about people when they say, we do real world combatives. You ever heard a soldier and their military say, well, we do real world combatives? Okay. What equipment do you have? If they don't have aren't fighting around furniture, and if they are not wearing their rifle strapped to them in some of their training combatively, then they're leaving a lot of things out. The pads that we have go over the rifles, and we strap them on, guys. So when you do full kit, you're going to have to cuff, fight, and everything, because at what point will a soldier take that rifle off and set it on the ground?
Never.
He's not when he's on an objective. No. Now, he could be in this team room. He could be doing a low vis mission. He could be doing things where the rifle's not there. But if you're anywhere outside of it, now you may leave it in a vehicle because you chose to. But if you don't have a set designated place to leave it, and it comes out on you, you're not laying this thing down in a corner somewhere. You shouldn't. So it's on you. And you have that sling and rifle needs to be an appendage that you have to learn how to fight and move around. Now you add that rifle and kit and you get tackled over furniture, it goes back to the dagger again. I can't make guys good enough. I'm fortunate I've been able to train, you know, and still working with some of the most elite guys. I say the most elite guys in the world since 98. I still have a contract to this day with certain units. But I can't make a guy good enough in the amount of time you have. And what is good enough? And how many people are on them? And how quick do they have to get somebody off of them to pick up that dead space in the room before people start shooting at them? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to go. I could go off in 1,000 different.
No, that's okay. We're gonna round out here because we're getting close to, or actually we're at time. But kind of rounding off on final thoughts here. If you could leave people with one principle or mindset to carry into their everyday life, what would it be?
Well, a lot of that depends on where they're at in their life. When you say, what principles, create habits. You know what I mean? Figure out what you need to do, right? Is it to be safe? Whatever it is that you're doing, take baby steps to implement that in your lifestyle. Does that make sense? Now, you may not want to do it, but try to do a little bit. When I say do a little bit every day, a little bit every week, do something to move towards that objective, even though you don't feel like it, and make it part of what you do every day. And it could be a habit of locking a door. It could be a habit of doing certain things, a habit of checking around the corner. When you get out of your car, protocols we have is we you may look in your rearview mirror, because you're worried about traffic, but even if you're in the parking lot, you may look in your rearview mirror and then step out and clear that B pillar before you step out, because those were some of the places where we mugged people. When you're walking out of a store, look around and see who's paying attention to you all the time, right? Create habits of safety and take baby steps. Be healthy, right? Eat healthy, be healthy. Your body is a tool as well. So create habits where you're not overeating, cut back on some things, take lifestyle changes on foods that you have. Find somewhere to train, if you really, and let that be a lifestyle for you would be important. Go to some seminars here and there and try to pick up some knowledge, if you're gearing towards self-defense type things, advice, with people. And this is, I'm trying to just gear it towards that, but set goals and take baby steps to get there. And there can be days where you forget or you back up, but don't lose the motivation of pushing forward, and whatever it is you need to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. Greg, if people want to learn more about you, follow your work, and connect with things that you have, how can they do that?
Well, I've got Instagram, SOCP_solutions. That's SOCP_solutions. For training for law enforcement and military, SOCP.info. And then for gear, SOCPgear.com. To get some of the stuff that we're coming out. I'm constantly, putting new products on there that I'm developing now. So stay tuned to that.
Well, I have to say, I'm sure I'm not alone, but it's been an honor to sit down with you, Greg. It's been one of the highlights of since I got into all of this. I never thought that I'd have a chance to sit down and talk to you, but it's been a real pleasure, sir.
Well, it's an honor for me. I don't get out much. I kind of stay in my own niche of the agencies and units that I work with. But I enjoy getting on here talking about this stuff with guys like yourself. You guys are, doing good stuff, putting out information and motivating people to be safe. I appreciate that.
And with that being said, I hope that we can keep the lines of communication open and we can have you back to discuss other things. So, yeah,
I'd love to.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back, Greg. So that would, and next time I get down to Fort Bragg, I'll come see you.
Come check me out.
All right, we'll do that. All right, everybody. That is no other than the one, the only, the legend, Greg Thompson. It has been a pleasure to have him with us here today, and we hope to see him again soon. Thanks for joining us, folks. This will also be uploaded on YouTube. Have a great day. We'll see you tonight.
That's all, folks.